The slider module within Divi can be placed anywhere on your site and has a lot of awesome customization options that you have to make it look however you want. Today I'm going to walk you through how you can add and customize the slider module. Let's get right into it. So the first thing we need to do is add our slider module, and we can either look into our modules here or we can search for it. So I'll just type in slider and then we'll add the module. Over here, all your module settings are going to be broken down into 3 sections. You have content, design, and advanced. First, we'll look at the content settings here. And the first thing we want to look at is right here where we have our default slides that are imported. This is where we can add new slides. By default, it'll load with 2 slides automatically, and then you can press this little plus icon to add a new slide. I'll go into all these settings here in a moment, but first we'll finish looking at the settings we were talking about. So back here, the other content settings we have are elements, link, background, and labels. Under elements, this is where you can determine what elements you want to show or hide in the slider module. You can either show or hide the arrows. So you can see if I disable this, it'll turn the arrows off, or we can have them on. So if I hover over, we have the arrows. If it's off, when I hover over the module, the arrows disappear. We also have the options to either show or hide the controls. So if I turn this off here, you can see that the controls at the bottom go away. For now, I'll just turn them back on. Then we have the settings for link. This is where you can apply a clickable link to the entire module if you want to. To do that, you can just put in your module link URL and then decide if you want it to either open in the same window or in a new tab. The background settings here, this is where you can add a background, color, gradient, image, video, pattern, or mask to the slide module. Now note that the background settings you choose here will apply to all of your slides. If you want the slides to have individual background styling, you can style that in the individual slide settings. To change these settings, you can either add a background color here, and then you can click the plus to add a background color. You can also do the same for a gradient. So if I wanted to, I could click this, click add a background gradient, and then we can determine all the settings we have for our gradient down here. You can choose a gradient type, direction, if you want it to repeat, and then you can change all of your colors here within your gradient settings. So if I wanted to change this here, I could just click that, and then we can change the color that we want for our gradient. So if I wanted it to be black, we could click that, white, so on and so forth. And then you can also adjust all your gradient stops here. So if I wanted to add a gradient stop in the middle, I could just click that, and then we can adjust the gradients by either sliding it to the left or the right. And if you double click it, it'll bring you up your gradient settings. So if we wanted to make this black in the middle or white or whatever, we could do that here. If you right click on one of these stops as well, you can remove it. So if I right click here, I can remove the gradient stop, which makes it super easy to set up your gradients. If you want to add a background image, you can go to the adding image settings here, and then you can click the plus icon to add a background image. Same goes for a video, really similar. You can either use a WebM or an MP4 for a background video. And you can see on each of these settings as well, you have your different settings for each one listed underneath there. So for our background image, all our background image settings are here. For video, all our video settings are here, and so on and so forth. You can also do this for a pattern as well if you wanted to have a background pattern, and the same thing for a background mask. Now the last setting we want to go over underneath the content settings here is the admin label. This is where you can give the module a name only visible to you to help you assist in keeping things organized and easy on your back end here. By default, the admin label will be the name of the module, but you can adjust this if you want just by clicking here and changing that to whatever you want the admin label to be. Now let's look at the design settings here under the design tab. So if I click this is going to bring up all of our design settings. The first one we have is overlay. This is where you could apply a global overlay color to all the slidings within the slide module. So if you want to use a background overlay, you can do that here, and same for a text overlay. And you can see when you turn that on and off, it makes the adjustment. Next, we have navigation, and this is where you can adjust the navigation arrow colors and your dot navigation color. So you can see I have those on right now. So if we wanted to change the colors, we could do so over here. So if you wanted to change it, I just did it for red so you can see it really easily. Same thing with the dot navigation. You can see you can make those changes here. Under image, this is where you can style the images used in this module. You can do things such like round the corners, add a border style, adjust the border width, adjust the border color. You have controls for a border style and box shadow as well. Next, we have the text settings, and this sets the overall text style for the module. Now again, this is for the overall module settings, but you can always customize each individual slide under the slide settings. Here you also have your settings for title text and your body text as well, where you can do things like change the font, font weight, font style, text alignment, text color, text title size, letter spacing, line height, and your text shadow. Next, we have settings for the button. This is where you can set custom styles for your button if you want to, as well as your button alignment. So if you wanted to, you can turn this on, and then you can adjust it however you want. You can change the button text size. So if we wanted to increase that to a lot, we could. You could adjust the button text color here. You have options for the button background, and anything you could need to style the button is all right here. But for now, I'll just turn that off. Now under sizing, this is where you can determine all of your sizing settings, which will be your width and your height. So you can do things like adjust your width, your max width, content width, and so on and so forth. And then under spacing, this is where you can adjust your margin and your paddings. Under border, This is where you can add a border to the module if you want. And this is where you also style it. So if you wanted to, you could add a border here. You could adjust the border width, the border color. So if you can see here, I could add a border if I wanted to, change the color, do whatever I wanted to under your border settings. Under box shadow, this is where you can add a box shadow to the module if you want, and you can adjust all of those down in the module settings right here as well. So if you wanted to have a drop shadow, you can do that, and you can adjust the position, the strength, and the color as well. Filters here allow you to adjust things such as the hue, saturation, brightness, contrast. You can add a sepia filter as well, your opacity, blur, and then you can even change the blend modes. So if I wanted to add a saturation filter to this, to the entire module, I could. And you can see you have all of your filter settings right here. Under transform, this is where you can scale, translate, rotate, skew, and transform the origin of your module. And then the last one we have is animation. And here's where you can apply animations to the module. So if we wanted to add a fade, we could click fade. You can see you have slides, bounce, and so on and so forth. And under each animation, you also have all the options to adjust them. So you could change the duration, delay, your starting opacity, the speed curve, if you want it to repeat the animation, and if you want this to be an automatic animation as well. Now, the last tab we have up here at the top is Advanced, and this is where you can change some advanced settings. So first we have CSS ID and classes. This is where you can assign a specific CSS ID or a class to the module. Under Custom CSS, this is where you could have any custom CSS that you want for your module as well. Now, under the Attributes tab here, this defines the button link's relationship between the source you're linking to and the page that you're linking from. Then we have the Conditions tab. This allows you to choose when to display this module based on a set of conditions. So if you have any specific conditions, you can click this, and then you can adjust those conditions down here. The visibility settings define the visibility of the module. So you have options to where if you want to show content on mobile, yes or no. You can show CTA on mobile, yes or no. Same with image and video on mobile. And then you can also disable this on specific places if you wanted, for like a phone, tablet, or desktop. And then you have transitions. This will control the transition duration of the hover animations as well as the delay and speed curve. Then we have position settings here. This will define the positions of the module as well as the offset origin. And then the final one, we have a scroll effects. This will define how the module behaves upon scroll. You can make the module sticky, either to the top, bottom, or top and bottom, and choose that the module transforms upon scroll. Now, I mentioned before that we could also customize each individual slide. And to do this, we'll go back to content, and then we can choose which slide we want to customize, and then click the gear icon to bring up the settings for that specific slide. So customizing these are going to be really similar to how we customize the overall slide module. So here we can adjust everything for the title, our button, and the body as well. Under our content, we have similar settings for your image and video, link, background, and admin label. And then over in the design tab, this is where you can adjust the design for each individual slide. These are going to be the same settings that we had for the module settings as well. So we have our overlay, navigation, image, text, title, and so forth. So if we wanted to adjust the text here, we could do that. And then we can change our text alignment. So if we wanted to right align it, left align it, center it, we can. You have options for your text shadow, all of our title text options here. So if I wanted to change the font weight, I could, the title font, and all of the same settings that we saw before. Then we also have advanced settings as well, and these also include your custom CSS, your attributes, conditions, visibility, transitions, and your position as well. Here you can see you can customize every single slide to look exactly how you want it to. So as you can see with all of these settings, you can really customize your slide module to look exactly how you want it. When you're happy with your changes, you just go down here to the bottom and you can save your changes. If you don't want to, you can always discard them. So I'll go ahead and save my changes here. I'll save this. We can see our slider module we designed. And if you're happy with it, you'll want to go to the very bottom of the screen and click Publish to save your changes. So that brings us to the end of the slider module demonstration. Before you go though, make sure you check out our blog where we have a lot more tips and tricks on the slider module as well as a lot of other ones. Also, make sure you check out the rest of our documentation at elegantthemes.com/documentation so you can be on your way to mastering Divi.